All right, guys. So our next main topic is going to be bringing us into the world of DC, in particular, the Snyder Cut. Had some kind of unprecedented news that they are actually going to be bringing in the entire original cast minus one to actually do some reshoots, which we were initially, I don't know, told explicitly that they were not going to be doing any more additional footage of any kind for the Snyder Cut. So it's kind of interesting that they've one already even like obviously allowed the Snyder Cut to be created in some ways, which is great. But then two, like I don't know, the rumors initially were like, oh yeah, it's going to be like $30 million to finish it. But then we got word from the former lead of HBO Max saying that he wishes it was only going to cost him $30 million. So they're already spending. I don't know. I estimated probably about 75 million would probably be the closer, more accurate number to actually get everything finished. But that was in a world prior to them actually doing reshoots with the whole cast. So to me, that kind of I don't know, it kind of implicates that that they're probably spending even more money now. But I don't know, guys. What do you guys think about this? And then two, obviously, we got news that Henry Cavill supposedly is saying he's not going to be a part of this.
Well,
So may or may not.
I think it'll be good because I mean, if it's that good where they're doing reshoots to where they want to make it as good as possible, they're probably going to make the money back. Like people want to see it.
All right, plenty of people. I definitely.
Yeah, like even I do. I mean, even I do.
Well, I'm just like I said, I'm just kind of more shocked that they're even just doing it in general. Like, if the financial aspect aside, I can't even imagine what they're gonna need anybody for. So it's just like kind of, oh, it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's
Like,
like what are they reshooting?
what are these scenes, man? And then
So there's a couple things that I was like the way my understanding of the way that Justice League was intended prior to all the drama with Zach being let go and Joss being brought in, all that coming out of the production of BVS, my understanding was that Justice League was set up to be a two-parter. Justice League Part 1 and Justice League Part 2. And that Part 1 was basically the film that Zach filmed, that he put to tape. And then Justice League Part 2 was going to be filmed shortly thereafter, and they were going to be released consecutively in back-to-back years. And then you had the reception of BVS, and you had issues with the studio and Zach, and Zach's unfortunate loss, and then Joss being brought in. So everything got kind of thrown into disarray. But if what Zach had filmed originally was supposed to be part one of a two-parter, I'm wondering if these reshoots aren't to close off the story in a more definitive way, rather than leaving the audience with a giant cliffhanger at the end.
well, two, that now that you bring that up, it just kind of had me thinking because if they're willing to bring in and maybe they are just doing it for that purpose, just to kind of give it a better, leave it less open ended. You know what I mean? Um, but the fact that they're willing, we'll just say, to spend the money to actually film these additional scenes, I'm wondering if say this thing actually does like incredibly well, and makes HBO Max a ton of money and all this stuff, and it's like somehow super well received. Because even my thing with this whole thing is that, like you just kind of said, the the critics and the fans for all of Zack Snyder's DC movies before were pretty much split down the middle. It was just
You loved it or you hated
yeah,
it.
it was the epitome of divisive. So
Mhm.
I highly doubt that just like this it's not gonna be like when this comes out, everybody's not just gonna all of a sudden love it. Like it's gonna be the same kind of concept because if I find it hard to believe that if 50% of people hated Zack Snyder's DC movies, me not being one of them, I liked them. That all of a sudden they're just gonna come on board with this, like all of a sudden, because I think
If
most of
it's
the
really
people
good, maybe. I mean,
maybe, but I think it's unlikely. You know what I mean? Do I want it to happen? Sure. But here's my hypothetical. Like that aside, if it is somehow successful and somehow even more well received than Zack's DC films in the past and Justice League and whatever you want to say,
Justice League.
if the HBO Max miniseries version of this Zack Snyder cut of Justice League is just far more unanimously well received. What do you think the odds are that they actually do Zack's Part 2 for HBO Max?
That'd be cool.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to drop. I mean, it's still a substantial investment, but it's one thing to drop 75 million to complete a vision of a movie that's been mainly produced. It's another to give him what 300, 350 plus million to create a second part.
well,
A
I don't
wholly
know if they
new.
would need that much though, because if they stuck to the series model, they could presumably do essentially what they're doing for this quote unquote. It's like going the Game of Thrones production route, like it's like 20 million an episode. So
Okay.
if they were to do this part 2 and do another 4-part miniseries, maybe they'd be willing to do it for another 100 million, depending on how successful it is. You know, if they could get it done, because they wouldn't be making it as a big blockbuster like movie per se, but it would still have as good a production value as like Game of Thrones, presumably, which would be, I mean, that's pretty good. You know,
Mhm.
I mean, I could see him doing if if it's successful enough and they're able and Zach's willing and the cast is willing, and if Zach thinks he'd be able to do it for like $100 million, maybe $150 million. Because if it's like super successful, I mean, money talk. So if somehow this comes out and against all bounds of logic, somehow it's more well received than any other DC film made by Zach. Because that's the thing, I want it to be, but I don't know, the odds aren't really in that favor. So it's going to be if 50% of people didn't like anything leading up to it, it's the same flavor. It's going to be the same, type of movie as Zach's other DC movies. It's not like it's going to be some whole new realization of anything. Like most of the movies already shot, so it's not going to be like anything different, like so.
Yeah.
But if somehow it is, I could see him. I could see him maybe wanting to do that, which would be kind of cool.
I think it'd be cool. Yeah.
I'd
If
like
they
to see
would-
part 2.
If they went Game of Thrones route, I mean, look, they've got my money. they've got my views. I mean, no matter what they do, I'll check it out because they got me. I'm a big superhero nerd. But
Yeah,
I'd love to see a DC and Justice League show. It also is interesting, when you bring it up and put in that context. They seem to have lined all their ducks up or gotten their ducks in a row as far as that being an option with bringing Ben Affleck back into the fold. We're going to see him again in the Flashpoint movie, so he's back involved with the family when it looked like he had been when he kind of left WB and left the DC universe.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got Aquaman. The Ray Fisher stuff is interesting because here you've got reshoots stating that he's coming back to do reshoots, but then you've got this other side of it where he's like fighting with the production or the movie arm of it. But maybe if they bring him back with HBO, he's more likely to do it because he doesn't have the bad involved. I don't know. There's a whole lot of questions around this whole thing, and unfortunately I don't think we're gonna have any definitive answers until this is released.
it's not surprising to me that Ray Fisher is coming back because he was a fool. Like he's been on record saying that like everything, like he's super pro Zack. He is like 100% pro Zack Snyder, and that was one of the things that
Pro-Zack.
when he initially started coming out with all these like allegations against, I mean, in particular like Joss Whedon and how Justice League and the set and everything, how it was when the reshoot started happening and Joss came on. That's when all the negative stuff happened. But the first things he was saying was that like, he was mad about like Cyborg's betrayal. Like all his stuff was cut. Him and Zack had this whole like rich story thing and everything from the movie and like originally shot. And he was like,
He was supposed to be like the cornerstone of the movie, wasn't
yeah,
he?
yeah. That's what him and Zack set up. And he said like it was just completely different once Joss came on. Like, and not just like on screens. He wasn't like just mad about the on screen stuff, but like just the whole dichotomy. Everything just like the way he was able to interact with Zack was a much better way than he was with Joss. But like through that lens, it's like obviously I could totally see him like if Zack Snyder needed him to come back, he's probably all for it.
Yeah.
Probably gonna be he'd be there in a heartbeat. The interesting thing is like with with the Henry Cavill portion of it, is interestingly enough, the news dropped that they were going to be bringing back the whole cast for it like a day after he did this initial interview. So it could have been the kind of thing where, and they even mentioned this in this article, that he wasn't able to say anything yet because it hadn't been officially announced. So that's kind of one thing that they're kind of leaning on, is like maybe maybe that was the case. Like maybe he is planning on going back to do these reshoots at some point in time, but wasn't able to say anything because official news hadn't dropped. But the only other thing that would kind of contradict that is, I guess right now he's in the middle of filming The Witcher season 2. So yeah, I guess it would just kind of depend on what they need him to do. At least we know.
Oh God, they're gonna have to digitally remove a mustache.
No, I was going to say Geralt does not wear a mustache, so
Yeah.
they won't have to worry about it.
True.
He does in season 2. Oh no, it's
Yeah,
mustache
yeah.
gate
Now he's
again.
got like a beard or something.
Yeah, it might be mustache gate hard do, but we'll see. Geralt is normally a little bit scruffier. That's the only
Yeah.
thing. He's a little bit scruffier and a little
They
bit
could take
dirtier.
like a day or so though.
Yeah, he could shave though, and I don't think anybody would care. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't see. I don't see Netflix and them being such d-bags about him shaving his mustache as Paramount was with him. Because, like,
Yeah.
my God, dude, he could just put a prosthetic mustache on afterward, and it wouldn't have been.
Insane.
No one would have known. But instead, they're just like, no.
It'd be so much easier just to like the movie prosthetic mustaches too. They look perfect. Like,
yeah, they look
Yeah.
100% believable. Like it's
it would have been easier to do
insanity.
that than
Like
digitally.
they were just flopping their thing on the table and saying, giving Warner Brothers the middle finger, and that's literally all that was. Which I don't know. We got some good memes out of it, so I guess it was okay. Because that whole movie is pretty much a meme. So I guess then we got the cool scene with him shaving off the mustache, and like Henry Cavill himself was memeing about it. So I mean,
Yeah.
kind of worth it, because after all that, we're actually getting the Snyder Cut now. So if anything, we should be thanking Paramount, because without Mustache Gate, that, like, I'm telling you, that was probably a huge part of why people wanted to see the damn Snyder Cut and not the Justice League movie. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to the Snyder Cut just as much as ever, though. So they're going to bring the whole cast back. That's great. I'll take any more Ben Affleck Batman as I can get.
You and Ben Affleck.
Not to drag this
Best
out
Batman.
too.
The best one.
Not to drag this out too much longer than it needs to be, but we also, I don't know if we touched upon it, but the news came down last week that DC Universe, the DC Comics streaming service, is shifting all of its TV shows and movie content to HBO Max, and it's going to go solely as a comic book, a monthly comic book or an annual comic book service. So HBO Max is going all in on DC content, and they're bringing everything into there. So it would make sense, like you've talked about many times. They have kind of a drought of content, of new content, original content. So this would stuff the coffers a little more and get them really going on the DC front.
Yeah, and I'm honestly, we were talking about that, I think, I don't know, last week, I think we talked about it off camera. With that, man, like, they're not lowering the price at all for the thing, though, right? That's the only thing that has me kind of concerned.
No.
Yeah,
no, the only thing they're doing is they're increasing they're shortening the turnaround between when a comic gets released on the stand and when you can read it on the service. And there was something else. They're adding in a lot more comics to the service, because right now it's like this curated collection.
Right.
It doesn't have everything. If they open up the entire archives, maybe it's worth it. I don't know.
Yeah.
The content is what matters. I just feel like I guess I should look into like what the price of like other digital comics subscriptions are, because I don't really know off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But maybe it's a competitive price for just that anyway, as long as they open up that back catalog and have more offerings. Maybe it's still worth it. I still think they should have just bundled it together with HBO Max. Just like had it as you can still have it separate, but like but as like an add-on feature, kind of just like included with HBO Max, just to, I don't know, help it along.
Sure.
But
I think, or I think if they offer it as a $2 or $3 add-on, I think that they could get a lot more business. I'm not planning on continuing my subscription. I own a lot of those comics. I don't have reason to go back and do that. So
no, I totally agree.
I'm sure a lot of people do too, and it doesn't give them much of a reason to subscribe.
Yeah.
So
We'll just have to wait and see. The only thing I'm also curious about too with HBO Max, just their content drawn as it is we haven't got like any word on the Green Lantern series that they're supposedly been in development for, I don't know, years at this point. So I think I read like an article saying somewhere that it was just like a rumor thing, so that's why I'm not really going to cover it. But I don't know. I still like to speculate. But they said it's supposed to be Jon Stewart as GL, who they're planning on leading with for it.
I hope it is.
Yeah, me too. I feel like that's logical in all ways.
Yeah, this isn't an original thought, but Kevin Smith talked about this on his podcast years ago, how and it might have been Mark Bernard and the guy that he does the podcast, so he might have been the one that actually brought this up. But, when they announced that they were doing a Justice League and a Green Lantern movie, they should have done Jon Stewart from the jump, because Jon Stewart was the one that was in the Cartoon Network Justice League cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
The one that spun out of the Batman the animated and the Superman animated series. That was Jon Stewart. That's little kids that were teenagers when these movies came out are now young adults. That's who their Green Lantern was. And why you didn't go with an established character that these kids knew is beyond me. So
no,
I
was just watching somebody on a stream who said the exact same thing, that when the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie came out, they were super confused because they watched the Justice League TV show and knew Jon Stewart was the Green Lantern, not Hal Jordan. And like, you'd have to watch it all to even really understand that that's how it was supposed to be, or know the comics and know that Hal Jordan was originally Green Lantern. But that aside, it speaks to your point where like Jon Stewart was already in most people's minds, and like for that age bracket, as the established Green Lantern, just by virtue. And he's honestly, in some ways, kind of better character.
He's a little cooler. He's an ex-military, ex-Marine.
Yeah, he's honestly a better.
He works better in if you're doing a space cop, a space army type show. I mean, bring in the guy that's got military background. That makes perfect sense.
I liked the idea that they tossed around of doing it like having both Hal and John and be it like a buddy cop kind of thing, but that have Hal Jordan be like the older guy, like make him be like like he comes in and kind of shows him the ropes, just like Kilowog and everybody showed Hal the ropes back in the day. Like if you think like I don't know, like a Tom Cruise age kind of Hal Jordan, and then like a Michael B. Jordan age kind of Jon Stewart.
Well, and then you get to be Hal Jordan. And then you know who you get to be Hal Jordan. And that's
Chris Pine.
Yeah.
Well, no, you know what I really wanted to be? I wanted Chris Pine to be Hal Jordan and Idris Elba to be Jon Stewart.
Idris Elba, I was going to say.
That's my literal dream casting for the GLs, man. And then like you could even throw in, get this, old Marky Mark for Guy Gardner.
Oh my God.
He could throw in that Boston accent. Like, it'd be pretty perfect.
Boston accent?
Yeah.
Dude, honestly, I was thinking Idris Elba myself. I was like, dude, he would be
maybe absolutely perfect Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
Like 100%. And plus, him and Chris Pine obviously worked together on Star Trek. So it'd be good. Like, they already have rapport. It'd be perfect. Plus, they're both fucking just fantastic actors. So, I mean, you throw in good actors in anything, you're good to go. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much all I got on this stuff. So, let's move along. So, the question is, guys, what do you think about them actually going in and bringing in all these original cast members of Justice League back, spending all this more monies, more dollar signs on this Snyder Cut of Justice League? Whatever you guys think, let us know down in the comment section below.